How far would you go to save a drowning child if it meant losing your career? I was the worst swimmer in 8th grade. While other kids glided through the water like dolphins, cutting through the chlorinated blue with practice strokes, I'd panic and flail like I was being attacked by invisible sharks. My arms would windmill uselessly, my legs would forget how to kick, and my brain would scream that I was about to die, even in 4 feet of water. It wasn't just embarrassing, it was terrifying. Every single swim class felt like walking to my own execution. Coach Martinez noticed my terror from day one, but he never called me out in front of the class. He never made me the example of what not to do. While other teachers might have forced me to demonstrate my failures to motivate me, he took a different approach. He'd quietly let me practice in the shallow end, while the advanced kids worked on their butterfly strokes in the deep end. During lunch breaks, when the pool was empty and no one could see me struggling, he'd show me breathing techniques, patiently explaining how to turn my head without lifting it too high, how to exhale underwater, how to trust the water instead of fighting it. The water isn't your enemy. Marcus, he'd tell me, standing waist deep beside me while I clung to the pool's edge. Fear is your enemy. The water will hold you up if you let it. But letting it hold me up required a trust one just didn't have. Swimming 4 laps was mandatory to graduate 8th grade. It was a district requirement that had been in place for decades. Some old policy designed to ensure every kid had basic water safety skills. I'd watched 3 kids fail the requirement already that semester and get stuck in summer school, spending their June mornings in a pool while their friends enjoyed freedom. My parents would absolutely lose it if I had to repeat 8th grade over swimming. My dad had been a competitive swimmer in college. The disappointment in his eyes every time I mentioned swim class was almost worse than the fear of drowning. As the final test approached, my anxiety reached new heights. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I'd lie in bed at night, imagining all the ways I could fail, all the ways I could embarrass myself in front of the entire class one last time. The day of the test arrived on a humid Tuesday in May. The pool area smelled like chlorine and sunscreen. 23 of my classmates were gathered on the deck, some stretching, some joking around, most looking completely relaxed. For them, this was just another easy A. For me, it was everything. During the final test, I psyched myself up for 20 minutes. I stood at the edge of the deep end, staring down at the water that looked impossibly far below. My heart was hammering so hard I could hear in my ears. Coach Martinez walked by and squeezed my shoulder briefly. "You've got this, Marcus," he said quietly. "Remember what we practiced? Trust yourself." I nodded, though I wasn't sure I believed him. When my turn finally came, I took 3 deep breaths like Coach Martinez had taught me. I dove in with more confidence than I'd ever felt, a clean entry that didn't even hurt my stomach. The cool water enveloped me, and for the first moment in my entire swimming career, I didn't immediately panic. The first lap went surprisingly well. I kept my breathing steady, turned my head at the right moments, and my strokes felt almost natural. When I touched the wall and flipped to start the second lap, I heard some of my classmates cheering. That tiny bit of encouragement filled me with hope. The second lap started strong too. I was actually doing it. I was actually going to pass. I could already imagine my dad's proud face when I told him. I could see myself walking across the stage at graduation, no summer school, no shame, just success. Then halfway through the second lap, disaster struck. Both my calves cramped up completely, simultaneously, like someone had stabbed hot knives into muscles. The pain was so intense and so sudden that I couldn't kick at all. My legs just locked up, useless dead weight dragging me down. I tried to keep swimming with just my arms, but without my legs, I had no balance, no propulsion. I started sinking in the deep end, arms thrashing uselessly, no longer following any of the techniques I'd learned. Water rushed into my mouth as I tried to call for help. I choked, coughed, went under. 2 lifeguards were on duty that day, but they were completely distracted, standing together near the equipment shed, flirting with a group of cheerleaders who'd come to watch their boyfriends swim. The lifeguards were both college students, probably more interested in getting phone numbers than watching a bunch of 8th graders do basic laps. Their rescue tubes sat and used on their chairs. Their whistles hung silent around their necks. I went under once, the world turning into a muffled blue nightmare. I kicked desperately, but my cramped legs wouldn't respond. I came up gasping, managed to get half a breath before going under again. My lungs burned. My vision started to blur at the edges. I could see the distorted shapes of people on the deck above me, but they seemed impossibly far away, like looking at another world through thick glass. Coach Martinez was supposed to stay on deck. School policy was crystal clear about this. Coaches supervise from a distance. They monitor, they observe, they take attendance and grade performance. Certified lifeguards handle emergencies. That's what the district paid them for. That's what their training was for. Coaches were explicitly forbidden from entering the water during tests. It was about liability, about insurance, about maintaining proper roles and boundaries. But when he saw me going under the third time, when he saw the lifeguards still completely oblivious to my struggle, when he saw my arms stop moving and my body start to go limp, he didn't hesitate for even a second. Fully clothed in his navy blue polo shirt, khakis, and dress shoes, he jumped straight into that pool and pulled me to safety. I barely remember the rescue itself. I remember strong arms grabbing me. Remember being pulled upward toward light and air. Remember choking up water on the pool deck while Coach Martinez held me on my side. I remember the sound of his voice, calm and steady, telling me I was okay, telling me to breathe, telling me I was safe. I remember the lifeguards finally running over, their faces pale with the realization of what they'd almost let happen. I remember the other kids standing in a silent circle around us, their eyes wide. I remember Coach Martinez's dress, shoes squeaking on the tile, water pouring from his clothes, creating a huge puddle around us. The principal arrived within minutes, summoned by someone's panicked report. Mrs. Henderson was a stern woman who ran the school like a military operation. She took one look at the scene, at Coach Martinez dripping wet, at me shivering under a towel, at the guilty-looking lifeguards, and her face turned to stone. "Everyone back to the locker rooms," she announced. "The swim test is postponed." Coach Martinez helped me to the nurse's office. My legs were still cramping, still aching with that deep muscle pain. The nurse, Mrs. Chun, checked me over carefully, asked me questions about my breathing, gave me water and a heating pad for my calves. "You're very lucky," she said, glancing at Coach Martinez, who stood in the doorway, still soaking wet. "Very lucky." The investigation started immediately. The district sent representatives. There were meetings, interviews, written statements. The lifeguards were questioned extensively about their distraction. I was asked to describe the incident over and over. My parents were called in, furious and grateful in equal measure, angry that I nearly drowned, but overwhelmed with gratitude that Coach Martinez had saved me. But the policy was the policy. Within a week, Coach Martinez was fired for violating safety protocols. It didn't matter that he'd saved my life. It didn't matter that the lifeguards had failed to do their job. It didn't matter that every parent in the school supported him. The district's lawyers were clear. He had violated explicit safety guidelines. He had entered the water during a test. He had overstepped his role. The liability issues were too significant to ignore. His teaching license got suspended pending a review board hearing. 15 years of teaching, hundreds of kids helped, countless lives impacted, and it was all gone because he'd chosen to save a drowning child instead of waiting for lifeguards who weren't paying attention. The news spread through the school like wildfire. Students organized a petition. Parents called the district office. The local newspaper ran a story with a headline, "Teacher Fired for Saving Student's Life." The story went viral online, with thousands of people expressing outrage at the district's decision. But bureaucracy moves slowly, and once a decision is made, reversing it requires admitting fault, and institutions hate admitting fault. On his last day, Coach Martinez cleaned out his office while students lined the hallway, many of them crying. He'd been at our school for 8 years, had coached 3 different sports, had been voted favorite teacher 4 years running. Now he was packing his diplomas and photos into cardboard boxes, his career destroyed by a single act of heroism. I waited until the hallway cleared before approaching him. I didn't know what to say. How do you thank someone for saving your life? How do you apologize for being the reason they lost everything? He saw me standing in the doorway and smiled. That same patient smile he'd given me every time I'd struggled in the shallow end. "Marcus," he said warmly, "how are the legs?" "Better," I managed though my voice cracked. "Coach, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. If I'd just been a better swimmer, if I hadn't panicked." "Stop," he said firmly, setting down the box he was packing. "This isn't your fault. Not even a little bit. You hear me?" I nodded, but tears were streaming down my face. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a small box, the kind that might hold a piece of jewelry. He handed it to me, and I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a silver whistle on a chain, identical to the one he wore around his neck during every practice. "Sometimes doing the right thing costs everything," he said quietly, his hand on my shoulder. "But watching you breathe again was worth every consequence. Every single one. I'd make the same choice 1,000 times over. But your job, your license, everything you worked for, We'll still be there in some form, he said. Maybe not here, maybe not teaching, but I'll figure it out. What matters is that you're alive. What matters is that you get to graduate, go to high school, grow up, have a life. That's worth more than any career. I don't know what to say. I whispered. Say you'll keep swimming, he replied. Say you won't let this fear win. Say you'll remember that you're stronger than you think, and that asking for help isn't weakness. Say you'll be the kind of person who jumps in when someone needs saving, even if it costs you something. I clutched the whistle in my hand, feeling its weight, its significance. I promise, I said. He smiled, picked up his box, and walked out of his office for the last time. The district did eventually overturn his firing, but it took 6 months of legal pressure, media attention, and public outcry. By then, Coach Martinez had already moved to another state, taken a job coaching at a private school that didn't have the same rigid policies. His teaching license was fully restored, his record cleared, but he never came back to our district. I did pass the swim test, eventually. The district brought in new lifeguards, implemented better supervision protocols, and gave me a second chance 2 weeks later. This time, I completed all 4 laps without incident, though I carried Coach Martinez's whistle in my bag for luck. I graduated 8th grade that June, walked across the stage with my class, and received my diploma with pride. My dad was in the audience, cheering louder than anyone. But the real graduation had happened in that pool. In that moment, when I learned that some people will risk everything to do what's right, that true heroism isn't about following rules, but about following your conscience, and that the measure of a person isn't found in their job title or their credentials, but in their willingness to jump in when someone is drowning. I kept that whistle. Through high school, through college, through my first job, and my first apartment. It sits on my desk now, 15 years later, a reminder of the man who taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. I became a teacher myself, eventually. Not a swim coach, but a high school English teacher. And when I see a student struggling, when I see someone drowning in their own fear or doubt or circumstances, I think of Coach Martinez standing at the edge of that pool, fully clothed, making the split-second decision to jump. And I jumped too, because he taught me that some things matter more than policies, more than careers, more than protecting yourself from consequences. Some things, like a child's life, like a student's future, like doing what's right even when it costs you everything, are worth jumping for. The whistle around my neck isn't just a reminder of the day I nearly drowned. It's a reminder of the day I learned what it truly means to be a teacher, what it means to be a hero, what it means to be human. Sometimes doing the right thing costs everything. But as Coach Martinez showed me, some costs are worth paying. If you enjoyed this story, like and subscribe.